The garage sat on the edge of town where the asphalt cracked and weeds pushed through concrete like nature reclaiming what was hers. Inside, beneath flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects, a man worked alone. His name was Jake Miller, or at least that's what the faded sign above the door claimed. Miller's Auto Repair. Simple. Forgettable. Exactly how he wanted it. Jake wiped the grease from his hands with a red rag that had seen better days. His fingers moved with precision as he tightened the last bolt on a transmission that most mechanics would have given up on hours ago. The owner, Mrs. Chen from the bakery down the street, couldn't afford a new one. Jake charged her half what the job was worth. He always did that for the locals who struggled. They thought he was generous. They thought he was kind. They had no idea who he really was. The bell above the door chimed. Jake didn't look up immediately. He knew the sound of every footstep that entered his shop. These were expensive shoes. Italian leather. Someone who didn't belong in this neighborhood. When he finally turned, he saw a man in a tailored suit, out of place among the oil stains and scattered wrenches like a diamond in a junkyard. "Can I help you?" Jake's voice was steady, casual, the voice of a man who spent his days covered in motor oil and nothing more. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm looking for someone. Former Special Operations. British. Went dark about 5 years ago." He pulled out a photograph, crisp and new, and held it up. The man in the picture had shorter hair, harder eyes, but the face was unmistakable. "Seen him around?" Jake shrugged, returning to his work. "Lots of people come through here. Can't say I remember everyone." "That's interesting," the man said, stepping closer. His shoes clicked against the concrete floor. "Because the person I'm looking for, he'd probably say exactly that. Professional, trained to blend in, trained to disappear." He paused, letting the words hang in the air like smoke. "His real name is Jason Statham. Ring any bells?" The wrench in Jake's hand didn't falter, but something shifted in the room. The temperature seemed to drop. The buzzing lights grew louder. Time stretched in like a wire pulled too tight. "Never heard of him," Jake said. "But if you're not here to get your car fixed, I've got work to do." The man in the suit studied him for a long moment. Then he placed a business card on the workbench. Black card, silver lettering, no company name, just a phone number. "When you remember," he said, "give me a call. There are people very interested in finding Jason Statham. People willing to pay a lot of money. And people willing to do a lot of damage if they don't get what they want." He left without another word. The bell chimed again. Jake stood motionless, staring at the card. 5 years. 5 years of oil changes and tune-ups. 5 years of being invisible. 5 years of pretending the past didn't exist. He picked up the card, walked to the metal trash can in the corner, and let it drop. It fluttered down like a dead leaf. But as he returned to the transmission, he knew they'd found him. After all this time, after all the careful planning and endless precautions, someone had connected the dots. The quiet life he'd built was crumbling. The man he used to be was crawling back from the grave he buried it in. Jake Miller was about to disappear, and Jason Statham was about to wake up. The night came cold and heavy. Jake locked the garage at exactly 6 o'clock, same as he did every evening. Routine was survival. Patterns meant predictability. Predictability meant control. He walked 3 blocks to the small apartment above the hardware store, took the stairs instead of the rickety elevator, and unlocked 3 separate deadbolts before stepping inside. The apartment was sparse. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, no photographs, no personal items, nothing that told a story because stories could be traced. He moved to the kitchen and opened the cabinet above the sink. Behind the instant coffee and canned soup, his fingers found the seam in the wood paneling. He pressed. A section popped open. Inside was another life. 3 passports, each with a different name in his face. Stacks of currency from 4 countries. A phone that had never been turned on. And wrapped in oilcloth, a Glock 19 with 2 extra magazines. Jake stared at these objects like relics from an archaeological dig. Tools of a man he'd sworn never to be again. His mind drifted back without permission. Kabul, the mission that changed everything. His team of 6 inserted into hostile territory to extract a diplomat's daughter being held by a warlord with connections that reach into government offices. The intelligence was solid. The plan was flawless. Everything went wrong anyway. The ambush came from inside. Someone had sold him out. His team leader took a bullet in the first 3 seconds. His best friend died covering their retreat. By the time they reached the extraction point, only 2 of them were left alive, and Jason had carried bullet wounds that should have killed him twice over. But they got the girl out. Mission accomplished. Lives destroyed. The investigation afterward was a joke. Classified reports. Closed-door hearings. Conclusions that blame bad luck and fog of war. Jason knew better. Someone in the chain of command had orchestrated the whole thing. Someone wanted that mission to fail. Someone wanted witnesses eliminated. When he started asking questions, he received a visit from people who didn't wear uniforms. Their message was clear: stop looking or stop breathing. So Jason Statham died. Not officially. There was no funeral, no death certificate. He simply vanished from databases and memory. The military listed him as discharged. His bank accounts closed. His apartment in London sat empty until the lease expired. He became a ghost. And ghosts, he'd learned, could live peaceful lives if they stayed quiet. The knock on his door shattered that illusion. 3 sharp raps. Pause. 2 more. Not the pattern of a neighbor or delivery person. Professional. Intentional. Jake's hand moved to the Glock. He chambered around silently, keeping his body away from the door's sight line. Jake Miller. A woman's voice. Young. Uncertain. Please, I need your help. They told me you're the only one who can. He didn't respond. Traps came in many forms. The prettiest ones wore desperate voices. My father sent me, she continued. David Chen. He said you served together. He said if anything ever happened, I should find a mechanic on Riverside Street. He said you'd remember Kabul. Jason's blood turned to ice. David Chen, the only other survivor from that mission. His brother in everything but blood. They'd made a pact afterward. Never contact each other. Never acknowledge the past. Stay buried. If David had broken that pact, something catastrophic had happened. He moved to the peephole. A girl stood in the hallway, maybe 22, with David's eyes and her mother's Korean features. She was alone, trembling, a backpack slung over one shoulder. No visible weapons. But fear radiated from her like heat. Jason opened the door 6 inches, chain still attached. Where's your father? Her eyes filled with tears. They took him. 3 days ago. Men in black suits. They came to our house asking about you. About Jason Statham. Dad told them he didn't know anyone by that name. So they took him. Her voice cracked. They said they'd kill him unless I brought them proof that Jason Statham was real. That he was alive. The world tilted. David had protected him. Even under threat, even facing death, his friend had kept the secret. Now he was paying the price for Jason's sins. You shouldn't have come here, Jason said quietly. I had nowhere else to go. She wiped her eyes angrily. Dad always said you were the best. The one who never quit. Please, you're his only chance. Jason looked at this girl who'd been dragged into a war that started before she was born. He thought about the quiet life he'd built, the peace he'd found, the promise he'd made to himself never to be that person again. Then he thought about David Chen bleeding out in the mountains, covering his escape, saving his life. He unchained the door and stepped aside. Come in. We don't have much time. The mechanic was gone. Jason Statham was back. Sarah Chen sat at Jake's small table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. Jason moved through the apartment with mechanical efficiency, pulling out the hidden passports, counting cash, checking the Glock's action. Each movement was precise, automatic, muscle memory from a life he'd locked away. Tell me everything, he said, not looking at her. Every detail. What they looked like, what they said, how they found your father. Sarah's voice was steadier now, the initial shock replaced by grim determination. It started 2 weeks ago. Dad got a phone call. Late at night, I heard him talking in his office. He sounded scared. I'd never heard him scared before. She paused, remembering. The next day, he changed all our locks, bought a security system, started checking the windows constantly. Jason felt the familiar weight of operational thinking settling over him like armor. He knew they were coming. He made me memorize an address. This address made me promise that if anything happened, I'd come here and say the word Kabul. Sarah looked up at him. Who are you really? Dad would never talk about the military. Mom said it was trauma, that some things were too painful to remember. Your father is a hero, Jason said simply, and the people who took him are trying to clean up old mistakes. He sat across from her. They are looking for me because I know things that could destroy careers, end lives. Your father got caught in the middle because he refused to betray me. What kind of things? Jason shook his head. The less you know, the safer you are. Right now, I need practical information. Did they say where they were holding him? No, but they gave me a phone. Burner, I think that's what they called it. Said they'd call in 48 hours with instructions. She pulled it from her backpack. That was yesterday morning. So we have about 24 hours left. Jason examined the phone. Basic model. Untraceable. Standard protocol for this kind of operation. When they call, they'll want proof. A meeting. They'll use your father as leverage to draw me out. So what do? We don't do anything, Jason corrected. You're going to a safe house. I'm going to get your father back. No. Sarah's voice was steel. He's my dad. I'm not hiding while you play hero. This isn't a movie. The people we're dealing with kill as easily as breathing. Your father would never forgive me if I got you hurt. And I'll never forgive myself if I run away. She leaned forward. You need me. They expect me to show up with proof. If I'm not there, they might kill Dad immediately. I'm your way in. Jason studied her. She had David's stubborn streak. His courage, too, though she probably didn't realize it yet. If you come, you follow every order I give. No questions. No hesitation. The second I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. He stood, moving to the window. The street below was quiet. Too quiet. His instincts, dormant for 5 years, were screaming warnings. They know you're here. Sarah jumped up. How? The phone. They are tracking it. Jason grabbed his jacket. We need to move. Now. As if on cue, headlights appeared at the end of the block. 2 black SUVs, driving slowly, scanning. Professional surveillance. They'd found his apartment faster than he'd expected. Someone had access to serious resources. Jason made a decision in half a second. He took the boner phone, opened the window, and threw it onto the roof of the building next door. That'll buy us 5 minutes. Let's go. They took the fire escape down, moving silently through shadows. Jason's mind was racing through scenarios, calculating odds, assessing threats. He'd spent 5 years telling himself he was done with this life. 5 years believing the lie. But his body remembered everything. The hyper-awareness, the constant threat assessment, the way danger sharpened the world into crystal clarity. They reached the alley behind a hardware store as the SUVs pulled up front. Jason heard doors opening, footsteps on stays. He led Sarah through a maze of back streets he'd memorized years ago, emergency exits planned but never expected to use. Where are we going? Sarah whispered. Somewhere they won't think to look. He stopped at a chain-link fence, cut through the lock with bolt cutters he grabbed from his jacket. Your father and I, we prepared for this. Different scenarios, different contingencies. We hoped we'd never need them. They emerged near the old industrial district, where abandoned warehouses loomed like tombstones for dead industries. Jason led her to one that looked particularly decrepit, its windows shattered, graffiti covering every surface. Inside, past the rubble and decay, was a steel door hidden behind a false wall. Jason punched in a code. The door opened into a small room that looked like a bunker. Supplies, weapons, communication equipment, everything needed to run an operation. Dad built this. Sarah asked in amazement. We both did. 5 years ago, right before we split up. Jason powered on a computer that hadn't been touched since. This is our insurance policy. Information on the people who tried to kill us. Evidence we collected. Names. Bank accounts. proof of conspiracy that goes right to the top. The screen glowed to life, and Jason began typing, accessing encrypted files. Your father has a copy of everything here. That's why they took him. They need to know if it's talked. If the information has been shared, they need to eliminate all copies. So we have leverage. Exactly. Jason pulled up a file containing photographs. Men in suits. Military brass. Politicians. These are the people responsible for what happened in Kabul. The people who sent us into an ambush. Your father and I spent months investigating after the mission. We found the money trail. The cover-up. Everything. Sarah stared at the faces. Why didn't you expose them? Because we couldn't trust anyone. The conspiracy went too high. We would have been killed before we could testify. So we made copies, hid them, and disappeared. Mutually assured destruction. If they left us alone, their secrets stayed buried. But someone broke the deal. Someone got nervous. Jason closed the file. Now we use what we have to get your father back. When they call, we negotiate. We trade the evidence for his life. Will they keep their word? Jason met her eyes. No, they'll try to kill us all. But they won't expect us to know that. And that's our advantage. The burner phone Sarah had left wouldn't ring for hours. But Jason was already planning. Every move, every counter-move, every possible outcome. The mechanic had fixed his last car. The soldier was back in the war. The phone rang at exactly 6 a.m. Jason had been awake for hours, preparing. The warehouse bunker was now an operations center. Maps spread across the table. Weapons cleaned and loaded. Communication equipment tested and ready. Sarah had slept fitfully on a cot in the corner, but she was awake now, alert, fear and determination warring in her eyes. Jason answered on the third ring. I'm listening. The voice on the other end was smooth, educated, American. Not the man in the suit from the garage. Someone high up the chain. Mr. Statham. Or should I call you Jake Miller? I'm impressed. You've stayed hidden longer than most. Where's David Chen? Alive. For now. Whether he stays that way depends entirely on you. A pause. I think you know what we want. The files. All copies. Every piece of evidence. Jason kept his voice flat, professional, in exchange for Chen's release. I'm glad we understand each other. There's a location I'm going to give you. You'll come alone, unarmed. You'll bring proof that the files have been destroyed. I need proof is alive first. Shuffling sounds. Then David's voice, weak but unmistakable. Jason, don't. It's a trap. They'll kill you both. Just run. The line went dead for 3 seconds. Then the smooth voice returned. Satisfied? Now here are your instructions. Old cement factory on Harbor Road. You know it. 11 a.m. today. Come alone or Chen dies. Try anything clever and Chen dies. Fail to bring proof of destroyed files and Chen dies. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. I look forward to finally meeting the legendary Jason Statham. The line went dead. Jason set the phone down carefully, his mind already working through the tactical situation. The cement factory. He knew it well. Abandoned for 15 years. Massive space. Multiple entry points. Perfect for an ambush. They'd have snipers. Probably a dozen armed men. No intention of letting anyone walk away alive. It's a trap, Sarah said unnecessarily. Of course it is. Jason pulled up aerial photos of the factory on the computer. They want me to walk in defenseless so they can eliminate the last witnesses. Then they'll tear this place apart looking for the files. So what do we do? Jason smiled for the first time since this started. It wasn't a pleasant smile. We give them exactly what they expect, and then we give them hell. He spent the next 4 hours preparing. Not just equipment, but psychology. He knew how these people thought. They'd expect a soldier. They'd prepare for violence. But they'd underestimate everything else. Their arrogance would be their weakness. At 10:30, Jason and Sarah left the warehouse in a car David had kept stashed nearby. An old Honda, unremarkable, perfect for surveillance work. Jason drove while Sarah navigated, her hand surprisingly steady now that action was imminent. The plan is simple. Jason explained as they approached the factory district. "I'd go in through the front. Visible, predictable. While their attention is on me, you circle around to the east side. There's a drainage tunnel that runs under the factory. Maintenance access from when the place was operational. You get in, find your father, get him out. What about you? I'll be the distraction. Don't worry about me." "That's not a plan. That's suicide." "No," Jason corrected. "That's war, and I'm very good at it." He stopped the car 3 blocks from the factory, hidden behind an abandoned gas station. From the trunk, he pulled out equipment, body armor under his jacket, a small pistol in an ankle holster they wouldn't find immediately, a radio earpiece so he could communicate with Sarah, and most importantly, a laptop containing fake files and a thumb drive rig with a computer virus that would corrupt any system it touched. "When I give the signal," he told Sarah, "you move, fast and quiet. Find your father. The tunnel exits near the old rail yard. There's another car waiting there, keys under the front tire. You drive straight to the Canadian border. Don't stop. Don't look back. You're planning to die in there. I'm planning to survive. But if I don't, your father needs to live. He has the real evidence. He can finish what we started." Jason checked his watch. "It's time." He walked the last 3 blocks on foot. The factory loomed ahead, its skeletal structure casting long shadows in the morning sun. He could feel eyes on him, snipers tracking his movement. Probably 3, maybe 4. Standard defensive setup. The main entrance gaped open like a mouth. Jason stepped through without hesitation, hands visible, the laptop held out in front of him. Inside, the vast space was broken only by support columns and decades of decay. In the center, lit by sunlight streaming through holes in the roof, stood 6 men in tactical gear. And tied to a chair, bloody but alive, was David Chen. "Jason," David croaked. "You stupid bastard." "Yeah, well, you would have done the same." Jason's eyes swept the space, cataloging positions, distances, angles. "I brought what you asked for." A 7th man emerged from the shadows. Older, silver hair, expensive suit that looked ridiculous in the industrial wasteland. Jason recognized him from the files. Richard Caldwell, former CIA deputy director, the architect of the Kabul conspiracy. "The great Jason Statham," Caldwell said, "you've caused me considerable trouble. You murdered my team. I eliminated security risks. Your team stumbled onto an operation they weren't cleared for. Collateral damage." Caldwell gestured at the laptop. "The files. Show me." Jason opened the laptop, turned it so Caldwell could see. Folders full of documents, bank records, mission reports, everything they'd need to believe it was real. "Excellent. And the other copies?" "Destroyed. You have my word." Caldwell laughed. "Your word. A rogue operative's word. Forgive me if I'm not reassured." He nodded to his men. "Kill them both." The tactical team raised their weapons. David closed his eyes. Jason smiled. "Now," he whispered into his hidden microphone. The explosion came from the east side of the factory. Not huge, but enough. Flashbangs and smoke grenades that Sarah had positioned before circling to the tunnel. Chaos erupted. The tactical team spun toward the noise. The snipers redirected their aim. Jason moved. 5 years of rust burned away in an instant. He threw the laptop at the nearest gunman, drew the ankle pistol, and fired twice. The man dropped. Jason was already moving, using the chaos, the smoke, the confusion. He reached David's chair, cut the bonds with a knife he'd hidden in his sleeve. "Can you run?" "Watch me." Gunfire erupted, but they were shooting blind, confused by the smoke and the unexpected resistance. Jason and David made it to cover behind a concrete pillar. Return fire pinged around them. "Sarah." Jason spoke into his MIC. "I'm in the tunnel. Coming to you." "Negative. Get to the car." "Abort. Abort." But Sarah Chen had a father's stubborn streak. She emerged from the tunnel access, carrying a submachine gun she'd found in the warehouse bunker, firing controlled bursts that scattered the tactical team. Not accurate, but determined. Jason swore and moved, drawing fire away from her. The factory became a battlefield. But they had surprise. They had desperation. And Jason Statham had skills these corporate soldiers had only read about in manuals. 3 minutes later, it was over. Bodies on the ground. Sirens in the distance. Someone had called the cops. Caldwell was nowhere to be seen, fled like the coward he was. Jason, David, and Sarah ran for the tunnel, emerged at the rail yard, found the car. As they peeled away, Jason saw police cars converging on the factory. In the back seat, David Chen looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and horror. "You shouldn't have come in." "Yeah, well," Sarah said, "I'm stubborn like my dad." They drove north, leaving their old lives burning behind them. But Jason knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The safe house was 200 miles north, across the Canadian border, nestled in the wilderness where civilization surrendered to endless forest. David had bought it years ago under a false name, insurance neither of them thought they'd need. Now, as dawn broke over the trees, 3 fugitives sat inside, exhausted, wounded, but alive. Sarah had surprised them both. She'd barely spoken during the drive, processing everything she'd seen, everything she'd done. Killing chained people. Jason knew that truth intimately. Now Sarah would carry it too, a weight that never lifted. David's injuries were worse than they'd looked. 3 cracked ribs, a dislocated shoulder, signs of systematic beating. Jason set the shoulder while Sarah held her father's hand. David didn't scream, just bit down on a leather strap and endured. Soldiers never stop being soldiers. "They'll come," David said when the immediate pain subsided. "Caldwell won't stop. Not now." "I know." Jason was cleaning his weapons, mechanical motions that calmed his mind. "We hurt them today. Made them look weak. That's worse than stealing their secrets. Now it's personal. So what's the plan? Run forever?" Jason looked up. "No, running's over. It's time to finish this." He opened his laptop, the real one he'd kept hidden in the car. Inside were the actual files. Years of investigation. Undeniable proof of conspiracy, murder, treason. Evidence that reached into the highest levels of government and military command. Enough to bring down careers and end lives. "We tried mutually assured destruction," Jason said. "Didn't work. They got scared. Moved first. Now we need a different strategy." "Which is?" "Scorched earth. We release everything. Every file. Every name. Every dirty secret. Let the world see what these people did." David shook his head. "We can't trust the authorities. Half of them are compromised. The other half won't believe us. We don't go through authorities." Jason pulled up a website. "We go public. WikiLeaks style. Release it everywhere simultaneously. Media, internet, foreign governments. Make it impossible to bury. Once it's out there, killing us becomes pointless. The damage is done." Sarah spoke up from the corner. "They'll deny it. Call it fake news. Russian disinformation." "Probably," Jason agreed, "but the evidence is solid. Financial records don't lie. Mission reports don't lie. Eventually, investigations will start. People will ask questions. The conspiracy will crack. And we become the most wanted fugitives in the world," David added. "Maybe, or maybe heroes. Depends who writes a history." Jason started uploading files to encrypted servers around the world. "Either way, we survive. That's what matters." The upload took 3 hours. During that time, Jason explained everything to Sarah. The real story of Kabul, the betrayal, the cover-up, the 5 years of hiding. She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable, absorbing the truth about the father she'd known and the man he'd been. When Jason finished uploading, he set a timer. 24 hours. Enough time to get further away, to prepare for the aftermath, but not so much time that Caldwell could mobilize a response. "Once this goes live," Jason said, "our old lives are over. All of them. Jake Miller, David Chen, every identity we built. We become permanent ghosts." "I'm tired of running," David said quietly. "If this works, if the truth comes out, maybe we can finally stop." "Maybe." Jason didn't sound convinced. They rested for a few hours, taking turns on watch. Jason took the final shift, sitting by the window as dawn turned the forest golden. He thought about the garage, Mrs. Chen's transmission, the simple life he'd built one oil change at a time. That person was gone now. Maybe he'd never really existed. Maybe Jake Miller was always just Jason Statham wearing a mask. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Jason almost didn't answer, but instinct made him pick up. Hello, Jason. Caldwell's voice. Smooth as ever, but with an edge now. I underestimated you. Won't make that mistake again. How'd you get this number? I have resources you can't imagine. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to destroy those files. All of them. Then you and Chen are going to disappear permanently. Plastic surgery. New countries. I'll even fund it. Generous retirement package for 2 decorated veterans. And if I refuse, then I stop targeting you and start targeting everyone you've ever known. Every mechanic who worked in your garage. Every customer. Every neighbor. I'll burn your entire world until there's nothing left but ashes and screams. A pause. I'm very good at collective punishment. Jason felt the old rage rising. The fury that had gotten him through Kabul. You touch civilians, and the files go public immediately. Then we're at an impasse. No, Jason said. We're at an ending. 24 hours from now, everything goes public. Every file. Every secret. Your career ends. Your freedom ends. Maybe your life ends when your partners decide you become a liability. Silence on the line. Then, quieter, you're signing your death warrant. I signed it 5 years ago. Difference is, now I'm taking you with me. Jason ended the call. His hands were shaking. Not fear, adrenaline. The knowledge that he'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. David appeared beside him. Was that him? Yeah. He threatened civilians. Everyone in my old neighborhood. Then we accelerate. Release it now. Jason shook his head. No, we stick to the timeline. But we need to warn people. Get them somewhere safe. They spent the next hours making calls. Anonymous tips to police. Messages to neighbors suggesting they take unexpected vacations. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. When the countdown reached 0, Jason pressed enter. The files uploaded across 50 servers in 30 countries. Encrypted packages sent to journalists, whistleblower organizations, foreign intelligence services. Within minutes, headlines began appearing. Massive intelligence leak exposes CIA conspiracy. Kabul massacre, new evidence of betrayal. High-level cover-up reaches White House. The internet exploded. News cycles went into overdrive. Government spokespeople issued denials that fell apart under scrutiny. By evening, 3 senators had called for investigations. 2 military officials had resigned. Caldwell was nowhere to be found. Jason watched the chaos unfold on his laptop screen. Beside him, David looked years younger, like a weight had lifted. Sarah stood between them, her father's daughter, ready for whatever came next. It's done, David said. No, Jason corrected. It's just beginning. This is when they get desperate, when cornered animals are most dangerous. He was right. That night, assault teams hit the safe house. But Jason had expected them. They'd moved again hours earlier, deeper into the wilderness, to a location not even David knew about until they arrived. They watched through binoculars as the empty cabin exploded in flashbangs and automatic fire. How many safe houses do you have? Sarah asked. Enough, Jason said. Your father and I, we prepared for war. Now we're fighting it. The next weeks were chaos. More revelations. More denials. Congressional hearings. International incidents. Caldwell was arrested trying to flee to a non-extradition country. Others fell like dominoes. The conspiracy imploded under the weight of its own secrets. Jason, David, and Sarah stayed hidden, moving every few days, watching the world burn the corruption away. Eventually, prosecutors reached out through secure channels. Immunity offers. Protected testimony. A chance to come in from a cold. What do you think? David asked Jason as they reviewed the offers. Jason looked at Sarah, who would become as much a fugitive as either of them. She'd lost a normal life to protect a father she was only beginning to truly know. She deserved better than endless running. "I think," Jason said slowly, "that maybe it's time to stop hiding. Time to finish this properly." 6 months later, Jason Statham stood in a congressional hearing room, cameras recording every word. He told the truth. All of it. The betrayal, the murder, the years of conspiracy. David testified beside him, his words carrying the weight of a soldier who'd sacrificed everything for honor. The hearings lasted weeks. Convictions followed. Reform legislation passed. The dead from Kabul were finally honored properly. It wasn't justice. Not really. The highest-level conspirators found legal loopholes. Some escaped to luxury imprisonment. But it was something. It was more than they'd had. When it ended, Jason walked out of the Capitol building into bright sunshine. No more hiding. No more running. His name was cleared. His service recognized. But he knew he could never go back to being a mechanic. That peaceful life was lost forever. Sarah waited at the bottom of the steps, her father beside her. They'd become a family forged in fire. "What now?" she asked. Jason smiled. "Now? Now we live. Really live. No more hiding. No more lies." They walked away from the cameras, 3 people who'd been through hell and somehow made it back. The mechanic was gone. The soldier was retired. What remained was simply a man who'd finally found peace. But Jason Statham kept his skills sharp, just in case the world needed him again. Because some battles never truly end. They just pause between rounds. And when duty called, he'd be ready, always ready.